Alright, I'm Strong, formerly of Vitality, Oglu, various other teams. Today we're going to have a look at the Masters Shanghai, the meta on Lotus, because very popular map, been played 5 out of 6 times so far this tournament. There's a lot of interesting stuff I think to go on with it, so let's just get right into it. So start out with, here are all the comps. So this is the last comp that all of these teams played in either the VCT regular season or the VCT playoffs. For the most part, there were very few cases where our team was changing comps wildly or changing comps week to week, blah, blah, blah. Didn't really happen. A couple of teams moved on from a comp at the start of the season to a different comp at the end. I know, for example, Carmine did. But for the most part, this is a pretty accurate snapshot of where everyone's sort of landed by the end of the season. The one exception I would say is T1. So T1's last comp was this Neon Rays Breach Sky Omen thing. From the looks of it, this was specifically used as a counterpick to Genji, who were running the normal comp, basically. For whatever they saw, they thought this would give them a better chance. It did not work. They kind of got crushed on it. And the comp they've run, and played a lot of Lotus, I should specify here. So the comp they usually run is the Rays, Fade, Chamber, Omen, Viper. But yeah, that should give a pretty good overview of what all these teams are doing to first place. Burn that image into your mind if you want. So obviously there's a clear meta comp here, right? And we saw a mirror matchup here, Genji versus Leviathan. So it's, you run Rays, you run Fade, Killjoy, Omen and Viper. I'm just going to let this run in the background for a little bit. The teams in the event doing this comp, by the way, are Genji and Leviathan obviously, but Fnatic and G2 are also running this. I don't think any other teams are running it as a default. So far at the time of writing, the comp is 1-on-1 at the event. I'm recording this during the Heretics game, where G2 are playing this comp, so maybe it'll be 1-2, maybe it'll 2-1. But G2 beat T1 with it, FPX beat Genji using it. So yeah, and let's talk a little bit about why this comp has become so common. Now the reason is, well, for the first place, double controller with the Omen and the Viper is meta on basically any map that lets you do it. Lotus was close to patient zero for this. Actually, I'll go over the Valorant for this. Okay, you may be wondering why you're looking at Haven right now, and the reason is because the funny thing about this is basically Haven is kind of where this double controller meta started. Lotus was close to patient zero. This was patient zero, and the reason for this is pretty simply, it's just put them here. It's a free site setup. So the thing that sprung double control into being a thing in the pro scene was because of how it supports you playing an attack. Because like you put up it's been a while, but let's say Viper Ward's here, for example. Omen puts here or here for his thing. Maybe Cypher cams onto mid. However you sort of play it, right? And you have two other agents doing whatever they're going to do. Now this is what's called a 1-3-1. Because you'll generally have these other two agents play towards, well, they'll start towards one of these other three agents, but you've kind of you're not really actively taking space, but you've taken a little bit of info and the ability to sort of come back into any area of the map. So you can sit, you can be patient, and you can just have, at some point you can be like, yep, 4 people walking behind this wall. Suddenly we either just swing out cold or we use some utils to flash out, whatever. And if the enemy plays with you like they should, like if the enemy plays into you with respect almost, right? They're in trouble now once this has happened, because they've probably got an anchor player, let's say this guy. He's like sitting here, he's just holding the site. He's fighting for his life right now. Because he hasn't been able to get a beat on you. He's like, the first he's seen of you is maybe he's seen of you here, or maybe he's seen of you, I don't know, here, or maybe he's seen of you here. But he's had like no info to this point. So he's just sitting, just holding, and chances are sometimes he'll get the trade, sometimes he won't. But even if he gets a trade, most likely his team's been put in a disadvantageous position here, because let's say their Jett is still all the way over here on wings. Let's say, I don't know, KO, been a while. So KO's here. So they have to go for a long rotation to get there. You're going to get the plant off really cleanly now, it makes it really difficult for them. So this is kind of where the genesis of, this is why double control has become such a thing. Because I remember specifically, we first tried this on Haven in Vitality in October or November. I don't remember who we played. It was like a high level VCT team. We played double controller. We got 10 rounds on attack. I think we got like 2 on defense, something like that. And this will be a recurring thing, by the way. This is an attack-sided approach in general, because with the whole thing with controllers is they don't really have good resets. They don't have really good ways to stop executes particularly. You kind of have to be playing the map with them if you're going to play them effectively on defense. You're kind of at a disadvantage anyway. But yeah, if the enemy sees an area from you on defense, if she goes up here and takes this entire area, maybe that's different, but still. But this approach is really good, particularly when Viper is really good, Omen is good, and Sky is really bad. Info cycling and agents in general are really bad. And so you've got a lot of potential building up mid-range structures on Breeze, on Sunset, maybe on Icebox to an extent, although there's a debate there. But really on Lotus, because you have the free map. So playing these 1-3-1, 1-1-3, whatever style, having the ability to come back, having the ability to swing out smokes, it's really powerful. And this is kind of where the genesis of the meta on most maps came from. Now, as for the rest, why you would play specific agents, and obviously the funny thing is this comp is getting destroyed right now, but we'll go over that, I'm sure. So Viper's kind of versatile to playing this style. You put the wall down, you can always sort of come back onto the wall. Obviously it goes towards A predominantly. Yeah, you need Vipers to do this. We've tried hard before with the idea that okay, well, it is just a wall still. You can potentially get it. Doesn't really work. It's really hard to get to work. So you have to use Viper. Omen is generally the pick for the second controller on most maps by most teams, because he's got the mobility, he's got the smokes, he's got the one-ways around C in particular. He's got the best defensive stopping power, I would say, well, compared to Brimstone and compared to Clove on this map in particular, he's got the best stopping power because of how the way of blind works. Astra's another discussion, but we will get onto that, I'm sure. It's hard to make a case for another, and the mobility is a big thing, because look, the way he can play around the C site in particular, and the way he can play on the A, he can play onto rubble, it's really, really valuable. It's really, really important. So, yeah, this is why you go Viper Omen. Clove would be interested in this map actually, but we'll see what happens with that. So that's the meta comp right now. So let's talk about variations. To start out, PRX, always doing PRX things. They're running double duelist for Jett Rays, they're running Breach, they're running Sky, they're running Omen, no Viper. A couple of teams still experiment with Neon, and obviously T1 had that double duelist comp that they tried. But as usual, Paper X are just playing a different game to everyone else. So here's the thing about Jett on this map, right? She's not horrible. Being able to updraft and dash gives you some crazy ability to execute on C against a Killjoy team, for example. Because you can skip over everything. Against Cypher it's not great, but against Killjoy it's great, because if you're doing, for example, what Genji are doing here with, again, this is how they're splitting out the util, you can bypass all of that if you want to, potentially. So that's nice. It gives you some help in terms of contesting A early, which is generally quite difficult to do on with the attacking team. You're going to get bombarded and you have to kind of come back on it. She's good for coming back on it. You have ability to contest a long sight line effectively, which is nice if the team isn't putting down util properly for one of those two flanks. So for example, if they've got an Omen and they're just not smoking this, she's great. Oh, sorry, I think she's not smoking this, she's great. Cool. But what you lose is she's awful on defense in practice, because unless they give you those long sight lines on defense for some reason, like they just, teams were doing for a while, you would be able to you put a guy here and you still get a pick here. So it's on screen again. You'd be able to sit a guy here and get a pick here. This was a thing for a while. Even with the one ways, you just sort of sit and you'd wait. Doesn't really happen so much anymore as people have got more comfortable playing these comps and how these comps work on attack, how these 1v1s in particular work on attack. So you lose a lot on defense. So PRX, they do well in this half, if I'm remembering correctly. They win like, we can just click and see, can't we? Some magic of the magic of silicon, I suppose. Okay, so they got 6 rounds on attack, but they were on a roll for a little bit, but they did fine on attack, and then they lose 5 in a row on defense. I know that for a fact, and then that's just map loss. And seriously, otherwise 1. I mean, you have good defensive contest. In theory, there's a round, for example, where I know something just walks out here, like just opens door. They're trying to attack through. They're trying to attack through into B. He should get 2 there. He doesn't. He's gonna get screwed. But look, if they play around that, if they play around you being able to do that, and they play around the space, then it's kind of hard for you to force the issue on defense. And if you're playing Jett, you need to force the issue on defense, or on this map with these comps, I should say. And this is why really it's only Foot and PRX who run Jett. It's why Foot banned it against us. They kind of knew we had. I think they. Actually, I'm not going to say anything, but I think they had a fear. They had an inkling that we might be working on something there. Actually, I'm going to cut that. Fuck it. All right. So Killjoy versus Cypher. This is going to be another thing. So the Killjoy Cypher argument at this point, outside of the EMEA, which like Cypher, I think it's heavily skewed in favour of Killjoy. In the EMA, there's a little bit of recalcitrance about this just because of, the way that our players play and all that sort of stuff. I actually think Cypher is better. And I'm going to tell you why. Well, in the first place, Cypher, I think, is better for that 1v1 style of attack than Killjoy is, just straight up. I think with Cypher, the way you can put down, you put cam here or whatever, and you manage to get this angle, and obviously they can try and break the cam, but you've got like a window to swing out, you've got the cage, you can play out the cages. I think that's a lot stronger. Like, you have a lot more bite to your 1v1 overall with Cypher. Whereas with Killjoy, what you'll see is basically teams will either neglect to be entirely on attack, or they'll do something like, they'll do something like this. They'll creep up there and they'll kind of have to creep, hope they don't get contacted here, and then they'll try and get something through, just boom-botting there and trying to get out from there. I don't think it's that strong. So Cypher's better on attack, but you're not picking him for the attack here, you're picking him for the defense because he is Sentinel and you already have double controller, so you're going to be good on attack. You don't need more attacking juice, basically. So on defense, this is the interesting part, actually. Let me go over to something. Okay, so on defense, and the reason I've got Genji Lafayette for map is because I want you to look at what Meteor is doing. On here, this is the thing. So when this agent came out, or when this map came out rather, people loved Killjoy and people would just stack all the utility towards C, and they're like, you can't get out of C, she controls water force, she controls all the chokes. Remember, this is when that choke was narrow as well, rather than it being like on this area here, when this area here was a lot narrower, right? What they're going to do against it, blah, blah, blah. I always thought this was actually awful. I had a massive argument once with Salah, the head coach of Vitality, about this in January or February 2023. Probably the biggest argument we ever had was over this thing. I think it's kind of, so this is the thing, I think it's kind of, I think I'm right on this still. He still thinks today he's right. And the meta's, the way that people are playing it has kind of favoured him to an extent. I think I'm right on it. So my argument with this is, look, it's too easy to skip over the chokes, even on the old version of the map, particularly on the new version of this map, with how Seaside is now. It's too easy to skip over the chokes because you have Omen, you have Raze, for a time you had a lot of Gecko. I think even Neon doesn't really get stopped by the Killjoy you took. She can just run straight through and take minimal damage. You can skip over the chokes, but I don't think it really helps you lock down Seaside that much. But she got popular because people said, okay, screw it. We're going to play either a 3-1-1 on A, or we're going to play a 2-1-2. And if we put Killjoy Util up on C, but basically initially they tried it on C, didn't really work, and what they realised was, okay, I just put my Killjoy Util on B. So I put it on the chokes where it is now, right? You put all your util on those chokes, it makes it really hard for them to get a quick plant off. the idea of someone playing a slow plant onto B is kind of inconceivable at that point. So it should be able to sneak up on there. But if you watch these games, actually, there's even a better example of this. Hold on. So if you go and watch some of these games, G2, obviously they come back from a massive deficit on this defense. It was CT sides on both halves. What you'll see is a lot of these. So you'll see some setups where she kind of doesn't try and control the chokes in the same way. She's more so looking for to control a wide area of sight. This round actually ends up being quite a relatively bad example of that. But she spreads her util about a bit more. When she goes to A, you'll see she'll use her util almost. Sorry, I might be chatting here a little bit. No, actually, I'm not. No, okay. So if she's on, she used the util on all 3 sites. She's on C. She kind of does what she did there, where it's a little bit more spread out. It's a little bit more. She's not trying to control the choke itself. She's trying to control that entire area of waterfall so she can survive there. If she's on A, you'll see she'll put mollies here and here because she's trying to control against the plant more so than anything else. And she puts it on B. She's again trying to deny the plant. She's not trying to control the choke itself. Gen.G go even further with this. Gen.G will spread across C and B, which was historically a trap, but they do it quite well. But they'll have they'll have a nade here. They'll have turret up here. They'll have might have a bot here. Blah blah blah. And I think so. They're trying to prevent plants, and they're not trying to control the choke. And I think that's fundamentally a much better way to treat Killjoy on this map. And it works quite well. I can't deny that. I think I still think Cypher is better. I think Cypher is particularly better. I think it was particularly better when people were really going hard with the Gecko with the Neon, but even now I think it's kind of better. But I think there's kind of just a comfort to it with regards to why people are almost universally. Again, Heretics have just played Cypher, so that kind of ruins things a little bit. But people are generally playing Killjoy. I think there's a comfort to it. Like on our end, we played Killjoy. We also played a bunch with Chamber. I'll get onto that. We played a bunch with Chamber in that spot instead. It was better. It was better at least for some matchups. And some matchups we decided we needed the Killjoy. For example, so actually, yeah, I mentioned Chamber now because this is a big thing that T1 are doing exclusively almost. It can be really, really good. Because look, the way that these double controller comps have evolved, initially you were all trying to force a sky with it, all this sort of stuff. You're trying to have heavy flashes. And then you're going on to the Fade who... I mean, the funny thing is Fade historically has been considered a bit of a counter into Chamber. I don't think it's drawn this map. But no, it can be really, really good because if you're just swinging out of these smokes, which a lot of teams are doing at some point on attack, I think he's a bigger threat on C than an Omen would be, for example. With regards to playing Sand, with regards to just TPing back into Link, you're completely safe. Or you can TP back onto this corner here, you're all good. You can obviously play A. It's really easy to play around A with this. So he can be really, really good against these teams playing Contact T. Breach kind of screws him, I think, but yeah. Apart from FPX, who have the triple controller, most teams are concentrating their smokes in one place to the point where he's just completely useless. And I kind of don't know why more teams haven't played around with him. I would guess, so the reason on Haven, we actually never used that in officials either, despite the fact we were playing the Chamber. Because we did that Convergence tournament. And the reason is basically we played it once or twice, it was really good. We played it once or twice more. The player playing Chamber, who will not be named, kind of lost his balls at some point. It's one of those things where if you don't feel confident on the agent, it's really hard to play the agent. If you lose confidence for even a second, and that's probably why, for example, Ye isn't playing it in Bleed. Because there are definitely, I think, with this meta over the last year on just maps in general, there have been points where Chamber would have made a lot of sense for a team comp for him to play. But if you're not feeling confident on the agent, then you're just going to be awful. See, I'm having a fun time with it now. That lined up quite well, actually. So, yeah. The other thing, I suppose, would be, look, you've got one trap. It becomes really hard to maintain active presence on C or B if they're going to push you with no conventional Sentinel util. that is genuinely a problem, because then it becomes, well, you have to take on a retake that might be, if you've got a 5v4, great. If you've got a 5v5 or 4v4, that might become really, really difficult. So I can understand it from that perspective as well. Okay, so as for Fade, this guy. Okay, so here's the thing. Fade was nowhere on this map in pre-season. We tried her last year. We went back to Sky, I think. During lock-in, 39% play rate of Fade versus 22% for Sky in EMEA. I don't know about other regions. I'm not going to go compile all the stats for that. Regular season, Sky not used, Fade 50%. And there's always been a bit of a push and pull of Fade and Sky on this map, I think. Now, the main problem for Fade historically has been her cycle util, which is what we call basically this util which respawns, specifically a cycle info util, which obviously Sky doesn't have anymore. It used to be the bird, because it would come back. The eye comes back. Now the main problem here is, so I think it's a little bit less reliable info. This is kind of one of the things where it's a matter of opinion, because Sky will give you no info on who is there exactly, just tell you that someone's there, so that's obviously a bit weird, but whereas Fade can do that. If it gets shot, it still tells you. If it doesn't get shot, you've got a great reveal, great, blah, blah, blah. I think she has a pretty hard time getting long-range eyes off of here. The map geometry doesn't really favour it, because all of this is like roofed. It's really hard to find areas to sort of get in. You can do it on A, but the way this geometry works on A, it's really bad, because you get it backside, it excludes this entire area. You get it here, it excludes this entire area. A lot of corner space for you to hide on. On C, you can get it over to waterfall, which can be nice, but it's not. And you can get it onto site, backside, but you kind of didn't need this help anyway. But she's not bad. Anyway. You need to be good at Fade. Also, you need to be good at Fade to get value out of her, because if you play it with the Sky, it's always been historically, look, this is an agent where you can be really good or really bad on it, because if I want to just be like, no, I'm going to sit back here and I'm going to flash for my team and I'm going to have like really long paths, and it's kind of, if they get flash, it's their fault at this point. You can do that. Or you can be really aggressive, like, well, I'm going to get right up onto hill, I'm going to know my angles, I'm going to trailblazer in, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do slash here, blah, blah, blah. Fade's kind of the same way. But if you do this with Fade, I'm just going to dog from this far back. It's going to expire like here. You're not going to get anything useful. You have to be like on this. Yep, dog's going to go around here. I'm prepared to run behind my own dog. Go for it. This has kind of always been the thing with Fade on this map. But when Sky became just useless, she came in as default. Now the main thing you can play instead of here is Gecko. Gecko's good. Having that C plant is really, really valuable. So obviously you can just can wingman up here. Can't really get it in here, I suppose. You could try and put just out of tree to get a quick plant, but not really. You can get good plants off on B. That's all very nice. The high flashes, Dizzy over here, Dizzy here particularly. That was nice, but for a while. I think he's become a little bit of a trap pick, because you can't play him you can't play him like Sky. You can't play him all the way back. You have to be aggressive with him. And if you're going to be aggressive with him, maybe you want to just be playing Fade instead. That's kind of what it comes down to. She's more versatile, I think, with a util. She can kind of play like if you think about it this way as well. So Gecko, he can play like, let's stay on attack. Gecko can play like, he kind of needs to get in your face to get his util off. Fade wants to get in your face to get your util off. She can play it from back here. Sky can just play from back here, but her util wasn't good enough anymore. So whatever. I think Fade's the best to call out of the three, basically. So that's the meta comp right now. So let's talk about variations. So start out, PRX, always doing PRX things. They're running double duelist for Jett Rays, they're running Breach, they're running Sky, they're running Omen, no Viper. A couple of teams still experiment with Neon, and obviously T1 had that double duelist comp that they tried. But as usual, Paper X are just playing a different game to everyone else. So here's the thing about Jett on this map, right? She's not horrible. Being able to updraft and dash gives you some crazy ability to execute on C against a Killjoy team, for example. Because you can skip over everything. Against Cypher, it's not great, but against Killjoy, it's great, because if you're doing, for example, what Genji are doing here with, again, this is how they're splitting out the util, you can bypass all of that. if you want to, potentially. So that's nice. It gives you some help in terms of contesting A early, which is generally quite difficult to do on with the attacking team. You're going to get bombarded and you have to kind of come back on it. She's good for coming back on it. You have ability to contest a long sight line effectively, which is nice if the team isn't putting down util properly for one of those two flanks. So, for example, if they've got an Omen and they're just not smoking this, she's great. Well, sorry, I think she's not smoking this, she's great. Cool. But what you lose is she's awful on defense in practice, because unless they give you those long sight lines on defense for some reason, like they just, teams were doing for a while, you would be able to you put a guy here, you still get a pick here. So it's on screen again. You'd be able to sit a guy here and get a pick here. This was a thing for a while, even with the one ways. You just sort of sit and you'd wait. Doesn't really happen so much anymore as people have got more comfortable playing these comps and like how these comps work on attack, how these 1v1s in particular work on attack. So you lose a lot on defense. So PRX, they do well in this half, if I'm remembering correctly. They win just click and stick, can't we? Some magic of the magic of silicon, I suppose. Okay, so they got 6 rounds on attack, but they were on a roll for a little bit, but they did fine on attack, and then they lose 5 in a row on defense. I know that for a fact, and then that's just map loss. In a series otherwise 1. I mean, you have good defensive contest. In theory, there's a round, for example, where I know something just walks out here, just opens door. They're trying to attack through into B. He should get 2 there. He doesn't. He's going to get screwed. But look, if they play around you being able to do that, and they play around the space, then it's kind of hard for you to force the issue on defense. And if you're playing Jett, you need to force the issue on defense, or on this map with these comps, I should say. Yeah, and that's why it's really only Foot and Paper X who run the Jett. So let's talk about Foot. Okay, so Foot, obviously in the sheet they have a slightly different comp because they were running during the season Jett, Sage, Cypher, Omen, Viper. They have now switched the Sage over to Breach. I think with the to say on the Sage to Breach, to a degree it's comfort. I think Breach the Sage was comfort. Breach kind of does the same things but better, I think, because there's not the way that the geometry works, particularly around C. There really is just no opportunity for you to get good post-plant walls off of there. You can do it on B, but you're not going. You shouldn't be building a game plan on B on this map. Does nothing on A really. You might get up there 2 seconds quicker. Who cares? So Sage doesn't really do anything special that Breach can't do. It's just a question of comfort, in my view, anyway. So you can we're so thinking of Sage, just understand it as a slightly worse Breach. And there are a few teams that use Breach, of course, and the reason is basically, like Na'Vi did, for example. Look, your info fade is crap anyway. At some point you think, I'm just going to stop even taking info, I'm just going to pure fight for space, I'm going to use my smokes to get space, but I'm going to be ready to fight for everything, and I'm going to fight every single thing, and I'm going to have more util, and I'm going to, as we trade util back and forwards, I'm going to have more util, and I'm going to win. Funnily enough, I remember back in the day with Yonk, which became 200 Esports, which was the Yasin, Bonka, Nile, Wali, Rilius lineup, which was like being tipped, they're going to qualify for VCT, and then we lost to G2, which was respectable, I suppose, but we also lost to CGN Esports, who not respectable. CGN beat us hard, and why did CGN beat us hard? Because they were running comps, I think, on Fracture, where they just had more utility, and they were better utility trading, and we just completely short-circuited when they were just like taking these utility jewels, like just back and forth utility, and then we would lose out at the end. So that's always kind of the reason for Breach. The problem with Breach always is that you are generally having a deficit of info in your comp when you use him. But that's what they did when they dunked on us. Like, this is what Na'Vi did when they dunked on us this season with this comp. So I understand it. Now, the Jett, as I've already kind of said, I don't think it's great. but it's foot. So they're probably one of the best teams in the world in terms of how they play together and how they swing for each other, how they trade each other. They're absolutely terrifying to play against in that regard. Now they got worse this year than they were last year. Last year they were even better. This year they changed some players. They're improving on it again from what I saw in playoffs. But this is kind of they're always a threat just to swing on you. It's really, really scary to play against them sometimes. But yeah. So this is, and if you're that good at that, then you can sort of afford to be like, yeah, I'm going to have less raise U-turn, I'm going to have less chip damage potentially. Because I still have the same mobility almost. I'm not really losing mobility from making the Jett change. But I have to run through smokes more because I have 2 more smokes. Great. They're able to do that. They're really, really good at doing that. And as for the Cypher, by the way, yeah, Yetier is just an exceptional player, one of the best rifle players in the world. I think, and again, as I said, I think it's... I don't think I've said that, actually. No. So Cypher is potentially much, much better than Killjoy on this map. I think if I was not thinking of comfort at all, I'd play the Cypher. Okay, I mentioned a better attack. I also think with how the defense works, with the ability to completely, like the way you can put wires, the ability to shut down stuff on C, it was even better when Neon was in the meta. That's kind of been a loss for it. I just think Cypher can be a lot better, and also the ability to play anchor on A site more strongly. If you're playing Killjoy, she can play A. It's kind of weak. You're more likely to have someone like Omen or perhaps Gecko play out of this area as like your A anchor defense. That's kind of how you're going to play it, and that can give you a bit cause some problems in flexibility. I remember last year we had massive problems with this because we had to put Raze there to play out of doors. That's not good. So, I don't remember what the comp was, but we had to put like Raze there. So yeah, Cypher, good. I actually think so. The Heretics game just finished. Heretics won the first. Well, the Heretics map just finished. Heretics won the first map. So actually, let's go back to that briefly. So I've only seen dribs and drabs of this map, to be clear. But here's the thing. So Heretics were the only team that were running Neon regularly still, I think. There's not one other, maybe. They've moved off this now with Woot. Because obviously they're running, they have Patty Tech subbing in, Mini Boo will be playing, Woot's playing Julius for this tournament. They've moved off from Neon, which was like a Mini Boo speciality anyway. And they've moved him on to Raze. I think this comp kind of makes sense in general. Neon's advantage over Raze, by the way. If you get an exit off, you're not just going to be like, yeah, I've got the exit off here, great, we plant here. You'll be able to run straight through to CT. That's really, really valuable. Or straight through to waterfall. This has faded in popularity, I think, over time. And I also kind of think, like, look, you're at a premium for info on this map anyway, with these comps. Losing Boompot, low-key, quite painful. If he can start using Cypher more, it will get even more painful. So, yeah, fine. Makes sense. I think, in general, this comp that they're running right now, this is kind of, with, like, no Viper. Because you'll notice they've got the breach in. This is a really strong meta call, I think. Like, this could be the best read at the entire tournament. Because you should have you'll have a far stronger defense. Cypher kind of works as like half a controller with regard, particularly in the 1v1 setups, with regards to how he's able to take space. It seems like you're going to counter the Metacom quite hard here, which again they win this game hard. I didn't see the exact score. I think like 13-7. They win this map hard. I kind of think they've made the correct meta read here, like overwhelmingly. Because yeah, it's a really strong Cypher is really strong, Breach is really strong, and the Viper potential even pre-nerf Viper I think could be dispensable at this point. That's kind of what they're banking on. Has worked for so far for them, so we'll see how it works going forward. But yeah, Heretics, hate to say it, they've kind of made the read here. I love you, boo. But yeah. Okay, so to finish up, let's talk about China a little bit. So EGG have this thing with, they run Reyna. They've done it one time. They don't play this map. It was an anti-FPX thing. I will say, I know why they've done it. It's just because if you play Reyna, historically, when she's been played in the pro scene, she's been kind of used as a semi sort of lurker more so, which is always weird for solo queue players to understand. But it basically lets you, so she can just like run up places, right? She can just walk up B, and she can walk up B. She can flash out with B. Same play, it works on Icebox. I don't want to go on too much into this because it didn't work in the first place, and I don't think it's particularly good. Like, I don't think it's particularly anything magical to it. Now, FPX's comp is fun. FPX's comp is very fun. FPX's comp is triple controller. It's not the only map they play it on. They play it on Icebox as well. But they run triple controller. And it's kind of a logical extension at some point of playing double controller, right? Same as like you had teams in NA like 2021 playing double duelist, and then we're like, well, double duelist is so good because of how we can use it, we're going to play triple duelist, and so on and so on. It's kind of mad scientist's conclusion to play double controller at some point. Okay, now Astra. The thing with Astra is, because she has the ability, if she wants to, she's rotating here, but she has the ability, if she wants to just sit on C. She use U2, she puts down smoke here, or orb here, whatever I don't know what the term is, but she puts 2 pieces of U2 down here. She can use U2 for himself. She can sit back here. If you have a player that's comfortable on her, she can anchor a site and she can get a good portion of the value that a Killjoy or a Cypher would, I would say, because of how she can play around her pulls. Again, Vitality did this. We did on Split. We did on Split with Trex. Didn't work out particularly well in the last game, but I think it's solid. But look, if you have triple controller, you have like incredible possibilities in terms of all the stuff you can do, and I just lay a util here, and I walk all the way up A with my entire team. And your defense in theory isn't as bad as it could be. Now, the problem is what we've seen in the last 2 games of FPX is kind of hasn't held up. So you're seeing it, they're 5-1 down in this game, for example. Now, both games they won attack hard, they lost defense hard, went to overtime both times, 1 win, 1 loss, great. There are actually some micro problems in terms of how FPX play the defense. So they almost play 1-1-3. There's going to be an Astra sitting like here, maybe she'll creep up round 7 to 12 and start playing out of C, but she's pretty much always there. Viper's kind of playing around here, like just vaguely around B, but not really doing anything, and they triple up on here. Omen comes here, Gecko comes here, and Raze is running around, but she's generally around here somewhere. So it's almost always a 1-1-3 towards A, always there in spirit, basically. And so I looked more, I mean, I've more so watched Genji again. What Genji said was, look, we know exactly how you're going to play on A site, because this was the one that was afterwards. This was one that's today. The one here is one from yesterday. But Genji saw the game yesterday, they came into today, and they said, look, we know what you're going to do. We know you're going to play A site. Lysol is there and playing like complete crap, because he has been all tournaments, sorry. We're not scared of you. We're going to contest A. We're going to get it a lot of rounds. And when we come back to C, we know exactly like what you're going to do. We're not going to fall into the trap of basically going into B and getting retaken or anything like that. And they just completely destroyed them. So they were, and you could just take C 12 rounds and attack them there as well. I think that would work quite well. I think at some point, but Berlin's been having a good tournament. At some point, it would stop working for them. There's a lot of ways to skin this horse on defense, and the problem is just basically FPX are way too inflexible. They're way too easy to read, and it's like GG. And this is kind of the weakness of double and triple controller always is that defense is really hard because look, if you have a good enough defense, it doesn't matter if they can read it. They don't have a good enough defense. You don't have good enough tools to anchor both sides or both sides of the map. So you have poor stopping power and teams can just kind of run in on you. Look, they are literally running in on you there. I think they might actually win this round, to be fair, if I'm remembering correctly, but yeah. So that's the FPX thing. Yeah, they actually win this round, I think. But yeah. So that's kind of where we are. Now, methods are iterative, of course, and the annoying thing here is the Viper Cypher wrenches nerfs throw a wrench into how this works going forward. I don't think anything can really replace Viper 1-for-1. Harbour's just never been able to do it. I don't think Omen Harbour is good. I would be surprised if 2 conventional smokers will work as well with no wall. But whatever. I would say from what we've seen so far, both for this tournament and going forward, Heretics are ahead of the curve in terms of the read. Like I did the video, so obviously I said, yep, G2 and 100 Thieves are on this split. On this map, it looks like it's Heretics. And to an extent, if you go back to I think Na'Vi and NRG were doing some stuff in the actual regionals, which was ahead of the curve potentially. But yeah, Heretics have the read here. Because again, Cypher, better if teams aren't running Neon and Gecko. Well, the Cypher is better. It would be nice if teams are running Neon, they're not, but I still think it's better. I didn't say too much about Breach in the end, I guess. It is solid. I don't think this map is like Sunset, because so for example on Sunset, very similar 1-3-1 styles for attack. Breach was used for like quite early on. I think it was used in NA for a long time still. I don't know what the current meta is on Sunset, to be honest, off the top of my head. But what I sort of Breach was cheats on that map. And the reason Breach was cheats was because the geometry just kind of made it hard to get value on his flashes. It was literally just that. The stuns were amazing. Obviously, there's always the info problem, but whatever. But it was really hard to get value out of Breach flashes, I felt like. And that was like the huge thing that kind of stopped him being good on that map. And I think the meta kind of went away from him. The FPX comp is interesting. I'll give a shout out to that still. Because they can beat any team on the world on it, particularly if they start attack. And I think there's a lot of potential in terms of, like, if their defensive approach was better, not in terms of comps, in terms of the agents, and not in terms of the agents, rather, in terms of how they played it, they could have won both of those games in regular time, basically. The reason they lost was just because they're so predictable and it's just too easy to exploit at that point, I think. But that comp will also fall off over time as teams get used to it, as obviously the meta changes. I mean, I would say of all the non-Viper comps, I think Omen Clover is a little bit interesting as a Viper alternative, but you kind of don't have to map control at that point, so who knows. But yeah, and that's kind of my thoughts on Lotus, so yeah, thanks for watching, hopefully more in the future.